Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all today to our webinar. Today we're going to be talking about SEO best practices, just some of the things that you can really do with your website to drive more traffic to your Real Pro Systems site and hopefully get more leads in the process. My name is Jordan Russell. I'm the SEO manager here at Real Pro Systems. And then for those of you that are maybe not as familiar with Real Pro Systems, let's see, there we go. We'll just give you a little bit of information. Real Pro Systems is the leading provider of real estate websites and complete internet marketing systems on the market today. We have a range of products that will meet your needs, whether you're a new agent or you're an experienced team. Our system is really made to grow with you no matter where you are in your career. And we'll have a little bit more information at the end about that as well. So really to get into things, what is SEO? SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. And it's likely something that you've heard of. Pretty much any time you hear about a website, someone's going to talk about SEO and the importance of it. So really, the SEO is the practice of improving and promoting your website in order to show up better in the search results. And this applies to Google and to Bing and other search engines as well. But because of its overall size, Google is definitely where people put most of their focus. One of the things that SEO is not is it's really not a checklist of things that you can do to game the system. These are really legitimate kind of tasks and processes that you put into your website that help you rank well with the search engine and help establish relevance for the content on your site. So it's definitely not what in the industry we would call black hat, basically, underhand type techniques that you might do to show up better. And so, like I said, it's really about building relevance, and Google and the other search engines out there are really looking for sites that provide the best user experience. So they want to connect your quality content about your subject to the people that are searching for that. So you might be asking yourself, why do I need SEO? Years ago, gosh, almost 15 or 20 years ago now, it was kind of the feeling that if you build it, they will come. Basically, the idea was if you had a website and you had it out there, it was more than likely that you're going to be found for the information out there. That's really not the case anymore. There's so much information on the web that you really do need to put time and effort into having valuable content and making sure people get there. One of the things about SEO is it's really not necessarily just free traffic to your site. Unlike other pay-per-click type advertising campaigns, there's not a direct dollar amount associated with it, but there are definitely costs associated with it, whether it be your time, if you're personally doing the work to optimize your site, whether you're hiring somebody on your staff that's doing it or you're outsourcing some of it. You need to be mindful that there is definitely a cost associated with it, and there's work and effort that needs to be put into making sure that your site is positioned to rank well for the terms people are searching for. And some of those things, like I said, whether you're doing it or someone else, is really going to be focusing on quality content, an efficient site design, logical linking, basically how you're connecting between the various pages on your site. Those are all kind of pieces to what you might consider when you're looking at SEO. So some of the best practices we're going to be talking about today, we're going to start with keyword research. We're definitely going to be talking about content. It's one of the key pieces out there. We're going to talk about your site architecture, not only perhaps how the website system itself is set up, but more how you're using the content, kind of more the content architecture on the site. We're going to look at on-page optimization, and we'll talk about link building, and then a little bit about submitting your site to the engines. So when we're talking about keyword research, the first thing to think about are some of the mistakes you might want to avoid. This includes focusing on keywords that are going to be too broad, maybe keywords that have too much competition. Those would be words like just straight up the term real estate, chances are you're really not going to rank for those terms because they're really dominated by the big players in the market, sites like Trulia, Zillow, Realtor.com, things like that. The overall size that they've amassed is really hard to compete with on such a broad term. Another thing to look at is maybe keywords that don't drive enough traffic. If it's something that just not enough people are looking for, it might not be worth as much of your effort. We are going to talk a little bit about long tail terms, but if it gets too long, it might be a little bit difficult. Looking at your site, you might consider avoiding keywords that don't convert, things that maybe it gets somebody to your site, but there's no opportunity for them to become a lead. It's just not as relevant as it could be. And then also the idea of kind of ranking for a single keyword at a time. There's alternatives to that. So instead, one of the concepts I'd like you to consider is using keyword themes. Some of the ideas with keyword themes is that you're looking at multiple keywords at a time. The keywords are very specific. They might relate to a certain market area. They're more medium volume keywords, so they're not necessarily that high volume term like real estate, but it could be something more local like Eugene real estate or a neighborhood within Eugene that's really popular, something like that. You're looking for things that are maybe low to medium competition, where you're probably going to see more competition amongst your other local agents, but you're not seeing it as much from the big players. So as we focus on keyword themes, as I started to mention, even I guess real estate or even Eugene real estate can be a fairly competitive term. So what, as I started to mention as well, is to look at long tail terms. These are definitely terms that turn out to be less competitive, and so they can be terms that are more neighborhood specific or kind of farther along in the buying cycle. Basically, if somebody's searching to buy Eugene homes in the Oakway area, it's farther along. They have a better idea of what they want, and they're likely farther along in that buying cycle, and so they're going to be a more valuable lead to you if you're able to convert them. And then as well with the keyword themes, what I'd consider looking at are, instead of just Eugene real estate, kind of diversify around other real estate related terms. So you might talk about Eugene real estate, homes for sale in Eugene, relocating to Eugene, schools in Eugene, condos, Eugene living, recreation around Eugene, et cetera. Kind of basically on a single page, you might talk about all those various themes that relate back to the real estate keyword. That way you're really optimizing a single page around that, and you're kind of creating one catch point. This is going to do really two things for you. It's kind of helping you focus all the people onto one landing page, but it also makes it easier to manage because you're not trying to water your site down with a lot of content that's on all these various aspects of kind of the same area. And so it really helps the engines understand what you're focusing on with even just a single page. With that, this really leads into the content. So you've considered your content theme. You know the different terms that are really valuable to buyers in your particular market. And so now you want to use those keyword theme terms when you're generating your content. And so when I talk about content, I also want you to be mindful of creating content that adds value to your users. You're not looking to just create some fluffy text that has a magic number of uses of the term in your page, but you just want to use those terms kind of honestly and naturally throughout the text. You're really writing for the human site visitor when you're creating this content. It is important to have the pages optimized for the search engines, making sure that you use some of the technical optimization techniques that we're going to talk about in a moment. But really, if you're not making sure that your visitor's getting something out of it, you're really kind of missing the point, because the engine's going to help you get them there, but having that quality content that's good and credible for a real user is what's really going to convert them to a lead. One of the things you want to look at as well is the content depth, and what I mean by that is your website is not consist of a single page, but a collection of pages, and so you want to make sure that you have quality content written about various pieces of your the area that you serve. And so in a larger community like ours, our main city is Eugene. We have a neighboring city, Springfield, that's really popular for people to live in as well. And so we might make sure that we have solid content pieces for each of those surrounding communities so that it really ties things together. And on those content pages, we might refer back to that original page we created as well. So when I talk about Eugene, I might make mention of Springfield in that content as well, or vice versa. You know, so you're building out that information about your whole community. And when you're looking at content, you want to be sure to think of content in the various forms it can come in. It's not necessarily just text on your page. It's also the YouTube videos that you might embed. It could be the pictures that you're creating or including on your site. You know, it's great to include images of your community, whether it's more recognizable spots or pictures of what the typical housing looks like, things like that. So keep that in mind. It also includes blog posts, infographics, all kinds of things like that. Things that you know, a user's going to come to your site and they're going to kind of consume that content, whatever form it might take. And then when I talk about content as well, it's important to leverage an IDX system. IDX is great because it allows you to include all of the information from your MLS search on your website, and it helps give more information and keep users on the site. So it's giving more people a reason to connect with your site and stay there. It's just an incredible piece that you definitely want to make sure you have. So when we talk about architecture, I started to mention this a little bit, but the term I'll use here is content hubs. And so I talked about making sure you have a page for Eugene and Springfield. Some of the other communities we have around here are Florence and Coburg and Walterville, et cetera. And so those are what I would maybe consider a content hub, you know, all these different places that exist within our county here. And so I'm going to create a page for each of those as I go along. And then as you're working on those individual pieces or those hubs, you want to look at how you can connect those. And so as different pieces of information relate to each other, whether it be maybe you're talking a little bit about the history of an area and how it connected to the first place, or maybe the major hospital exists in one of the neighboring communities. Those different parts, you just make mention that they exist and work within each other, or one's maybe a bedroom community to the other. And so that starts to create a kind of a linking and a flow between those. And so not only does that help the person that's there, because maybe, especially if they're relocating, they don't know your area, it helps them kind of really explore and discover the whole community, but it also helps lead the engines to understand that you have those additional pages about the additional areas, but that they also relate to each other, and it starts to really put that whole picture together, and it knows that you're talking about the community. And so each of those pieces of content really becomes that much more valuable. And then as you're creating those content hubs, it's not just going to be a horizontal flow where they look at what's next to each other, but it can also be what information exists within that. And so this could be a combination of additional content you write about really specific sub-areas, like perhaps neighborhoods and things. But it could also tie into the IDX searches as well. IDX Broker provides a great tool that we use a lot on the SEO team, where we can actually create content and include search results right below it. And so those are great for pages like condos and golf properties and things like that. And so what we would do is create kind of that sub-pieces of content under Eugene. And so here on the left, I've got that, and you can see there's Eugene condos and single family, acreage, schools, golf. And each of those is potentially linking to each other, but then they're also linking back to the Eugene page. And so it's kind of creating that overall flow that just works together and makes sure that the users and the search engine knows all that is interconnected and related. And then my image here on the right, it just kind of shows how those content hubs just continue to kind of break down, and they can get drill further and further down depending on how big your metro area is or how important kind of the subsectors are. You know, it's up to you to kind of figure out how deep that really goes. So next, I want to talk about the on-page optimization. And these are really the things that you can do after you've created your content, but when you're putting this up to your site. And these are really important elements to be mindful of. And these are the technical aspects of SEO that you'll probably hear a lot about and definitely should be mindful of. So those include the URL, the title tag, meta descriptions, meta keywords, the H1, H2, and H3 tags. Those are the heading tags. Image, alternate text, and also bold text. So the first I want to talk about is the title. The title is a really important piece because not only does it show up in your browser on whatever tab you're viewing, but it's actually what shows up in the search results as the blue text that describes what the page is about. It's the kind of the first impression that you have that you're showing a potential searcher what your page is about. And so you really want to focus on making sure that the first part of your title really describes what your page is about. As you can see in my example, it says Eugene Real Estate from the Sample Real Estate Team. That Sample Real Estate Team piece is absolutely fine to include. I would always recommend, if you're going to include some kind of marketing tagline on your titles, do that after you've talked about what the page is about. Because what will happen is, if the title becomes too long, some of that information will get truncated, and you'd really rather have the description of the page itself rather than just your own branding information. That's, in this situation, not as important as what the page is about. Another note about the title is Google recently released an update to its formatting for the search engine result pages. So historically, if you're familiar with SEO at all, you may have heard that the ideal length of a title was about 70 characters. And that was quite a bit of space that allowed you to put a lot of information in there. One of the things that they've changed is if the search query actually matches a term in your title, they'll highlight and bold that term in the search engine result, or in the title when it displays. And so this can actually reduce the amount of characters that will display, especially if you're using characters like W's, which are wider than the letter I. So little things like that you do kind of want to be mindful of. So the new rule of thumb is really making your titles around 57 or 58 characters, so a little bit shorter than before. And I've included a link here on the presentation. The company Moz.com provides a lot of great resources on SEO. They've created a tool that allows you to test some of that out. And here's a preview of what that looks like. So here is my search. Just straight up, it shows an example. I've got downtown Eugene Real Estate from the Sample Real Estate Team. It shows what that looks like. Now if I update it and my search was Eugene Real Estate, it shows how that would bold the term Eugene Real Estate and also the term real estate. And so you see, compared to my first example, I see the ... at the end, so it actually cut that off, and that's actually showing even less characters because it uses that ... So it's one of those examples where you want to, you can use this tool and test that out, but you really want to be mindful of how long your titles are. So here's an example then where I took off the marketing piece. So it just talks about Eugene Real Estate, but it's very clear and concise. It doesn't cut any of that off. The next important part is the URL. Not only is the URL the piece that's going to get people to the actual page, it's a really great indicator of what the page is about as well. So you're always going to see that showing up at the top of your browser, but you're also going to see that in the search results as well. And so one of the things I would really recommend to you is using a URL structure for your pages that's very kind of concise and to the point. in this case, my page is about Eugene Real Estate, so my page is called Eugene-Real-Estate. It's very straightforward. Any user that were to see this in the results can very quickly see that, yes, this page is about Eugene Real Estate. There's really not as many rules about the length here, but I would say if you're including kind of subfolders in how the URL displays, you want to keep that at a minimum. So maybe I would have my link say rpsdemo.com/Oregon/Eugene-Real-Estate, something like that. But really, you're just kind of being mindful of how that looks to the users and to the engines, because having that term in there, Eugene-Real-Estate, makes more sense about what the page is than if the page just said something like EUG 0047341 or something. It's about making it real relevant to people. The next piece is the description or the meta description. This doesn't display on your page at all. It exists as part of the source code, but it is something that the search engine is going to display. Unlike the title and URL, the description actually doesn't have any direct impact on the ranking of the page, but it almost solely exists as a marketing piece that you can use. The rule of thumb here is no more than 170 characters, which should be plenty of space for you to write an informative description about what the page is. And here what I would really recommend is make it specific to the page and also include some kind of call to action, making it clear why somebody would want to click on this page if they saw it in the results. This is one of the biggest places that you can differentiate your page from one of your competitors. So you do want to put some thought into that. Looking a little bit further down the page, this really gets into the content that we're looking at. So the H1 tag is kind of the hierarchy or in the hierarchy of tags is the overall theme of the page. So in this case, it's Eugene, real estate, and information. And then on this page, our H2 is Eugene, real estate, and information again. The H2 carries a little bit less weight than the H2. Within your RealPro system, both of these get populated based on some of the information that you're putting in when you enter the page. So those are there by default. The H3 tag is the next step down in that hierarchy. And what we'll typically use it for when we're doing our SEO pages is talking about different features or attractions of a particular area. So in this case, we have headings for shopping and dining. So we're talking about all the restaurants and stores in the area. We talk about the parks and recreation. We talk a little bit about living, some of the things why people would want to live there, some of the more statistical things, median income, price ranges of houses and things like that, and so on. And so that just lets you differentiate that content as you go on the page. So you don't have to have a unique page necessarily for shopping and dining in Eugene, parks and recreation in Eugene, but you're really just setting those up separately as you go along. I mentioned as well the bold text. This is a great way to really indicate to the search engines what the page is about. Like I said, the H1 and H2 and H3 are already doing that, but bold text gives you another opportunity to do that as well. And so in this case, I have the text Eugene Real Estate for Sale set as bold. But if you are using other variations, going back to what we talked about with the keyword themes, if you maybe talk about homes for sale in Eugene and you have that phrase somewhere in your content, you might set that bold as well, just to say kind of to the, it gives not only the user a visual cue that, yeah, that's something we're talking about as well, but it also helps the engine understand that, yeah, this is something that the page is about as well. So consider using that bold text whenever you have I guess kind of a synonym for the area or another important part about what you're talking about. The image alt text is another element that doesn't show up visually on the page. It exists in the source code, but it's definitely important to use as well. So I do have an image on my page. Down at the bottom, you can see there's a picture of the Eugene skyline. The image alt text or alternate text originally existed as a kind of an accessibility feature for the web, But the search engines have really used that as well, because typically that alternate text is a description of what that image is. So in this case, I might say Eugene real estate skyline, or skyline in Eugene, something that describes what the picture is. You can definitely use instances of your key word or key phrase in that alternate text, but I would really try not to be overly forceful. Try to be descriptive without, really pushing what it is. So just be mindful of that. Now, the last one I didn't actually talk about was the keyword or meta keywords. Meta keywords are something that used to be used, but anymore they're really not a ranking factor. So if you choose to include them, it's not a problem. But honestly, it's not something that I think you need to put any time or effort into, and so you can really just leave those blank, and it's not going to have any negative effect on you. Moving along, the next part is talking about link building, and I'm not going to get real deep into this, but if you've heard of this at all, you've probably heard that things like Google's not putting as much emphasis on inbound links and things like that anymore. But it's important to know that your inbound links are still an essential part of SEO. And the idea of link building is basically working towards having other sites linked to your website. The idea is really similar to like if you wrote a reference paper in school. You're going to mention what your sources were and what's important. So if other places are referencing back to your site and they're credible sources, Google looks at that and gives your site more credit. And it says, these important sites on the web are linking to yours. There's definitely must be some value to your site, and it actually has a big boost in how your site might display in the rankings. One of the things I would really recommend you not do, and there's been a lot of changes within Google over the last 2 years, is participating in any kind of link strategy or link buying process. It used to be a real common practice, and Google's cracked down on that significantly, and they can actually negatively affect your site if you are engaging in some of those practices where maybe you're doing something that's not the most up and up type activity. So what I would recommend instead is, instead of trying to buy a batch of inbound links to your site, really work your natural or your real relationships to build natural links to your site. If you've got a mortgage partner and they've got a website, maybe ask if they'll connect to your website, if they're someone that's going to refer business to you anyway. If you've got different contractors or landscapers, whoever it might be in your network of professionals that are out there that have websites, and you have a great relationship and they would recommend you anyway, ask if they'd link to your website from their own. And that's the kind of activity that's really going to help and build reputation as far as how the search engines look at your site. And then I wanted to mention submitting your site to the engines themselves. Chances are, as time goes on and your site's been up, the search engines will find your sites and will crawl your sites and start to index your pages. But they, both the big players, Google and Bing, have what they call webmaster tools, and they allow you to submit a sitemap, which is a page that our system creates, or most websites, but our system does this as well, that has a list of all the pages that are part of your site. And so when you submit that to the search engines, it gives them kind of a roadmap of what information is out there, and it makes it easier for them to discover the pages on your site and to index those. And so I would really recommend, if you haven't already, you can just do a Google or Bing search for Google Webmaster Tools or Bing Webmaster Tools. Sign up for an account, and then it'll give you an option to submit a sitemap. And your sitemap is pretty straightforward. It's going to be your website's domain, so like examplerealestate.com/sitemap. And once you submit that, they'll start to look at those pages and make sure that they're being included in their regular crawls, which is a great way to help boost some of that traffic and boost the likelihood that you're going to show up in the search results. So, there's quite a bit of information here, and I want to talk about the implementation. It's really important that you develop a strategy that works for you, because a lot of this does take time, especially as you're creating new content. You're thinking about the different parts of your site that might go together. So you want to be really realistic about the time that you have or the money that you're willing to spend on it. So whether you're going to put your own time into creating that content and putting it on the site and optimizing it, whether you're going to have part of your staff, you're going to hire somebody, and think about what parts are most important for you. I would really say when you're considering the different keyword themes that you want to focus on, look at the ones that are most important to your business. If you've got 5 communities in your or 5 areas in your overall community, and you know that one of them is going to be the main place that's going to drive business for you, I'd say start there, and then as you have time, kind of build out. So do the one, pick the low-hanging fruit and work from there. And then when you're working on this content, really make sure that you're communicating to your clients that you are the local expert. That's why they're coming to you in the first place. And so you want, even on your website, you want to communicate to them that that's the case, that you know about the areas, that you know what's great about them, and you are going to be able to help them find the right house in the right spot for them. So leverage that knowledge that you have and work up content around it. Think about things like, why is your community so great? What type of things does it have to offer? The recreational opportunities, the schools, the jobs, etc. And then as you go along, always continue to add more information to your website and think about different concerns that your clients might have. One of the best resources for figuring out what type of content to add to your site is to think about questions that maybe your clients have asked you. If you find that people are routinely asking you certain questions, maybe you write a content page about that or include it about a particular area, or maybe write a blog about it. If people have recurring questions about different types of, maybe the recent mortgage reform and how that influences how people can buy houses, maybe you write a blog post about that and just kind of have some information out there that really helps people understand and also, again, know that you're the expert. So just keep all those questions that somebody might have in mind and use those to your advantage as you're creating content for your site. So in summary, I really want to encourage you all to be really mindful of these SEO best practices. In your keyword research, really consider the keyword themes and craft content around that. Not just looking at one keyword, but all those variations so that you can create one really well-crafted content piece that serves your users. And then right into that, the content, make sure you're writing it for your users, but do include those various terms so that the search engine is picking up on them. As you're creating the various content pieces, think about how you can link those together. Make sure that you're really creating that sense of community even on your own website so that it makes sense to your users and your the potential search engines. And then be sure to use the on-page optimization. These technical settings matter. Make sure you're using them. They're not hard to implement, but it's important that you do implement them. Again, with the link building, take advantage of your real relationships. Get those inbound links to your site, but avoid schemes. Just stay away from them. And then make sure that you're submitting your site to the engines. It's one of the easiest ways to make sure the search engines know what your site's about. So there's a lot of information that we do send over here, and you might think it's a bit overwhelming, and it can be. But your job is to be out there as a real estate agent. You're an expert on homes in your local area. You're not necessarily an expert on SEO, and that's okay. You don't have to be. And so I do want to mention that one of the things we do here at Real Pro Systems is we do have our professional services team that works on SEO content services. And one of the things that we really offer our optimized content packages. We work on locally focused community pages. We integrate with a Google Maps page for your site. We have professional writers that are working on the content. We implement all of these best practices, and we also include customized IDX searches with individualized content there. There's a lot that we'll do for anyone that's working with us on SEO services. So if you have any questions specifically about that, you can give us a call at 541-743-8510, or you can email us at contact@realprosystems.com, and we'd be happy to talk about what type of options we have around SEO services. And then just a little bit more about Real Pro Systems and how the various components that we offer are there to help you maximize your SEO effectiveness. So this is really a complete system that we provide. We offer several options that are part of this total integrated system, which includes a complete web marketing presence, which includes a main website. We have a mobile website. We have integration with social media and blogging. We provide integrated IDX with IDX Broker PT. We have home search stealth sites, which are ways to capture potential home buyers. We have home value stealth sites, which are really there to help with potential sellers. We have the automated CMA product that's out there. We provide opportunities for showing feedback, and the RPS video mail option. Those are all different front-end elements that are there to help you connect with your clients and your prospects as well. This all connects with our back-end as well. We have automatic lead imports from a variety of mainstream services, tools for lead management and lead follow-up, and then video management as well. So a lot of great tools there that can work with your entire web presence and your SEO focus as well to really give you a complete system. And so if you have, I guess the next step there would be if you have any questions about SEO services, or if you're interested in the Real Pro system as a whole, feel free to give our sales consultants a call. Our number is 541-743-8510. And just ask for a complimentary consultation. There's no obligation. It's just an easy way to get more information on how our system can help work for your business. And so it takes a lot of the stress of that website management and lead management and empowers you to be the best agent you can be. So please give us a call. So I do have a couple questions that have come in, and a couple great ones. The first is, does Yahoo have a webmaster tools? And the answer for that right now is actually no. A few years back, Yahoo and Bing went into a partnership where Microsoft's Bing platform provides all of the search for the Yahoo properties as well. So when you submit your listings to Bing, it's actually powering all of the Yahoo searches as well. So you're really just having to do that in two places, but you're getting three big major platforms at one time. The next question I have is, how do I research what keywords to use? Is there a site? There's quite a few different ways you can do that. There are some tools that are available through Google's AdWords program, which is their PPC or their pay-per-click advertising campaign. They do have a tool that you can use to help with some of that kind of keyword research and ideas. I have a couple websites in mind that I can't think of the addresses right now, but then there's one other source, which is actually the Google search itself. You're probably all aware that if you start to type into Google, it actually comes up with a list of suggested searches based on what you've typed. Sometimes the best way to find what people might be looking for is if you start to search for something in your area and see what other people have already been searching for. And so I would use that. You can try using that there. I will look into some of that information and see if we can share that as far as some of those websites as well. A couple other questions. Is the question, is it true that newer content brings you up on searches? In a sense, yes. So the the search engines definitely want to see that you have that your site is still relevant today, and so there's a couple ways that you can do that. The first is to blog. Using blog on your site is probably one of the easiest way to publish a small amount of information that really signals the engines that you're doing something on your site regularly. What I would suggest with your content, as far as if you're doing community pages or pages about your specific areas, is go ahead and put those up on your site. If you work on all of them and put them all up at once, that's not a bad thing. Some people will say, well, you should spread that out and maybe put one up each month. But at the same time, you do want that content going out there and being available for people to search. So I would say put your content up there as soon as you have it. But what you might also do is revisit that content from time to time, look at it, and see if there's information that's missing, or you could add additional. And so between publishing your initial community content, revising it, and then also posting to your blog, that should really cue the engines that there's a lot of new information going up there. And then to tie back into submitting to the search engines, part of that sitemap actually tells the search engines when that information was published and when how frequently it's updated. And so that's actually a great cue for them to know how relevant and how fresh your site is. So if you're doing all of those things, it should really help. There's a question about framing and whether or not Real Pro Systems sites are framed. The answer to that is no. So we do not frame content into our site. Even the IDX system that we use is an integrated IDX, which means that they're standalone pages that work with your site. Framed content does not provide SEO value to your site. So we don't do anything that's framing it, and I would recommend staying away from situations where you're going to frame in that content to get the most out of your SEO. And so then there's a question about whether or not RealPro gives the option to manually enter keywords, or is SEO purely based on the website content itself? The answer to that is, I guess, yes, to the first question. You are able to enter the keywords that you want to focus on. So when you're creating content and putting that up on your site, you're able to put in whatever terms that you want to in your titles and your descriptions, the content itself, and the keyword tags. So there's really not any situation where you're not able to specify what terms the content you're putting up is about. And then as you add more content to your site, should you regularly re-upload your sitemap as you're adding more pages and data? Great question. The answer to that is actually no, you don't have to. So once you've submitted your sitemap once, they keep that on file. And so the sitemap exists in one place, and that gets updated automatically. And so they'll get the cues that that information is changing. The typical cycle for Google or Bing is probably about 6 months, but if you've got your sitemap submitted, they actually revisit that content much faster. And so, yeah, you just put that up one time, and they're going to be checking out your site much more often. And then there's a question about someone was told that they need to be changing their website content every day, and why. That really ties into that earlier question about whether or not you need to have newer content on your site. And so the idea there, I would say the answer to that is really no. You don't have to change all of your content on a daily basis. It's really more about signaling to the search engines that you have fresh new content. And it's about having that new information for your site visitors as well. I would say, again, the content pages themselves, you can really put those up, and then, you know, occasional revision. If you just look over them, make sure that maybe a statistic that you had mentioned is still relevant. Make sure that if you're mentioning restaurants and businesses, that they're still open and they haven't changed, things like that. But otherwise, as far as new information and changing things, I'd really focus on the blog. It's one of the easiest ways to do that. The next question is purchasing domains that simply forward to your website worth it, or does using keywords work better? Another great question. And so, and I see this quite often, and the answer is really no. I don't think it's as worth it from an SEO standpoint. So if you're purchasing multiple domains and using them, but as an example, if my website was eugenehomes.com, and I also wanted to make sure that I could have a presence for condos for sale and things, so I bought Eugene Condos, Eugene Farm Homes, Eugene Horse Property, and I forwarded all those to my site. Those don't provide any SEO value. It's really, in that case, I would say the value those provide is more from a marketing standpoint. If you're sending out a mailer and you want somebody to really see that, hey, this is a, you could use them in that instance where maybe it's kind of just as a separate marketing piece to drive people and to try to drive home the relevance of a particular a term or kind of topic. But I would say the more important thing is really focusing on your main domain, really sharing content from that site, because really, if you start adding other domains and people start linking to those other domains, even though they're redirecting to your site or pointing to your site, it kind of waters down that SEO benefit. And it goes back to that linking strategy I was talking about. You know, if somebody picks up your site and they link to it, that tends to be a great benefit. So you want to make sure it's the actual page or actual domain that your site's on. So I'd probably stick away from doing that. And then the last question is, if you're already working in a small community, is there a real reason to break down into neighborhood keywords? And I would say that I think there definitely is, because it's a way for you to differentiate from your potential competitors. You know, if I really only focus on one town and I've got a community information about that, and that's where I leave it, I might be leaving some things on the table. But if I know that somebody's searching for the Rustic Hills neighborhood, and maybe they're not actually searching for Eugene real estate, but they're searching for real estate in Rustic Hills, I would actually be missing out on them completely. And so it's an opportunity for you to really drill down. And so I know with the neighborhoods, a lot of times there's not as much information out there, but you can really, what I would focus on is, briefly talk about it being part of the greater community, so you're kind of getting that tie back to that stronger community page that you maybe already have. But then also include some statistics and just some of the numbers about the community. You know, if it was built between 96 and 2004, maybe include that. Talk about the fact that it only has 120 homes, and most of the homes have indoor pools and granite countertops, things like that. So people maybe have a better understanding of what type of things to expect about that community. But it comes back to that long tail search. It's not something that's probably going to drive a lot of search traffic, but when somebody searches on that term, you're going to pick them up, and it's something your competitors might not be doing. So it gives you the boost. I would definitely recommend it. And so a follow-up about the domains, if I have 30 domain names, should I just let all but the main one expire? It really just depends on how you've utilized those in your overall marketing strategy. If you've sent out collateral that has that information on it, you might want to hang on to those domains, because it could be something that maybe somebody remembers one day and said, oh, I went to that, or I got this postcard about this page, and I remember that domain, and they'll go there and forward onto it. Overall, domains have a pretty low cost, and so if it's something that has been used at some point, you might want to hang on to it, just make sure people can still get to your site. Otherwise, yeah, you might let them go. It just really does depend on what you've done previously and kind of how you've used them in your overall marketing strategy. All right, well, that really wraps up all the questions that we have today. If you do have any other questions that come up, or you're interested in our system at all, like I said, do contact us either by phone or send us an email at contact@realprosystems.com, and our sales staff would be happy to get the right information to you. I do appreciate all of the great questions, and I appreciate everyone sticking around for the presentation today. I hope that you learned something from it. And yeah, I just appreciate your time, and I hope you guys all have a great day. Thanks for coming. Bye.